Hi there, it's Senator Kuchar, and I am so fortunate to have with me longtime friend, colleague, co-chair of our minister's mental health group, just a wonderful, wonderful person, Starr Cunningham from the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. Welcome, Starr.
Thank you very much, Stan. It's great to virtually see you.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen each other, but it is really neat. Look, you and I know each other well. I know you. Why don't you share with people who are watching this a little bit about yourself, what you do now, what you've done before?
Sure thing. So I'm currently the president and CEO of the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. I've been there for 7 years. And prior to that, I was with CTV Atlantic for 23 years. So my experience has been interviewing, writing stories, relationship building for the last 30 years, and making the transition into the charity world, the world of not-for-profits, was a big change for me, but it happened quite smoothly. And a lot of the skills that I had used as a television reporter and producer moved very nicely into the not-for-profit world.
Well, you were great on TV, and that doesn't mean you're not great now, but there you are. But that, for some people, that would be like, whoa, that's like a 180-degree turn to go from the work in the media to actually taking on a challenging foundation in a challenging area. What was that like for you? How did you decide to do that?
Well, I have a sister. I have two sisters. They're my best friends. And one of my sisters is mentally challenged, and she's a Special Olympics athlete. There's just 10 months between us. So for 2 months of the year, we're the same age. I think they call it Irish twins or something. But anyway, Stacy was born with a mental challenge. And as soon as she started in Special Olympics, I became a Special Olympics fan and was very active on their board of directors and hosted a lot of their dinners for them and their gala events. And lo and behold, one year they asked me if I'd be the keynote instead of the host, and it scared the daylights out of me. And my initial reaction was no way, because I ask the questions and introduce people. I don't share my own story. And with a little more persuasion, I agreed that I would do the keynote if Stacy could join me on stage. So the two of us prepared for that keynote. And I have to tell you, Stan, it was exhilarating, it was frightening. And what I realized after we took to the stage was that people in the room listened to me, listened to Stacy, because they felt like they knew me. They felt like they had a connection from watching me on TV for 23 years. And it was of interest to them, even though my story wasn't really that extraordinary, they could relate to it. And it brought about a feeling to me where I realized, wow, I have this platform and I have a voice that people will listen to, and I have an opportunity to really use it for good. Because after that keynote address, Special Olympics had calls the next day from volunteers who were in the audience, and people who hadn't really understood what Special Olympics was all about. So after I got a little taste of that, I thought, ooh, I need to use this. And the cause of mental health has always been very important to me. So it's I have mental illness on both sides of my family. I live with depression, and I kept that hidden for a very long time, particularly when I was on TV, because I was concerned that by sharing my diagnosis, people would question my ability to do my job. Maybe they wouldn't think I was the appropriate person to be interviewing the politicians and the police and judges and lawyers, and sharing stories that were really heavy stories sometimes. And once I came to the Mental Health Foundation, I was able to say that. And what I've realized is saying it has made me far more approachable. It's made me vulnerable. It's taken a huge weight off my shoulders. And I just feel like a more complete version of myself by owning it and being able to say that. So I live with depression, and my husband lives with bipolar. And he's a director at Amera, and we're both professional. I brought 2 kids into the relationship. He brought 2 kids into the relationship. So we're parents, we're volunteers in our community, and we just so happen to live with mental illness. It's not a big deal. You can live a happy, successful life with mental illness.
Well, no, that's amazing. And it takes a lot of courage to do what you did. It takes courage to share your vulnerability. It takes courage to switch careers right at the time you were top of the heap, frankly, in your media career. Where did that courage come from?
I think it just came from understanding that there was more I could do. It was scary. And did I doubt myself and worried if I had the skills to take on the title of president and CEO? Is a pretty big move from a producer and a reporter. But I did realize that what I felt that night at Special Olympics on the stage was something I hadn't felt in a long time. And I was 45 at the time, and I had heard from a lot of people that if you want to make a move, you have to make it before you turn 50 or it gets even scarier. And the timing was just right for me. And after you work in live TV for 20 years, yes, people think it's really stressful, and it is, the deadline's there, but I was using the same skills over and over and over. The stories would change, and the people would change, but it was, I wasn't feeling that exhilaration, and I wasn't feeling the challenge.
Well, that's really, really important. So with your courageous act, you actually opened up an opportunity for yourself to develop new skills, to develop new competencies, and to make different contributions. I mean, that must, in retrospect, feel pretty good.
It does, and I love it. I've really surprised myself because the things that scared me the most are the things that I really, really enjoy. Who knew that I would love doing budgets? Not me.
Not me.
Who knew that I would love learning about governance? I'm enthralled by all that stuff now. I love it. It's become one of my favorite parts of my job, and it's because it's new and fresh.
Well, taking on a charity at any time is a challenge. Taking on a mental health charity, when you took it on, was even more of a challenge because that stigma still was around. What things have you found, things that you've had to overcome, areas that you've had to really work hard at in order to be successful as the president and CEO of the Mental Health Foundation?
Well, I think the big thing is eradicating the stigma. I'll share a quick little story with you. When I first started at the Mental Health Foundation, I didn't realize this, but when I called people, my caller ID came up saying Nova Scotia Hospital. And prior to that, when I called people, I came up as CTV Atlantic. So I'd call people and they'd answer the phone and say, hello. And then all of a sudden, when I made the first call from my office at the Mental Health Foundation, the voices on the other end of the phone were answering with a little bit of more of a hello. And I would say, hi, it's Starr. I'm calling from the Mental Health Foundation. And 9 times out of 10, I'd get, oh, thank heavens. I was so scared. I thought the people from the loony bin were coming to take me away. Or I thought, oh my heavens, someone I know is being admitted to the NS hospital. And these were educated, professional people that I was calling from my foundation office. But that stigma was so alive and well that it really opened my eyes to the fact that we talk about there being stigma, but I wish I had have kept data. I should have, and you've taught me to be really cognizant of evidence-based projects. I should have kept data on how many people reacted that way, because I'm sure the numbers would be astounding.
And what just rule of thumb, how are you finding it now? Or do you find it?
I find it a little better, but it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
You've had an incredible career. You've thought a lot about this. If you have some suggestions that you want to share with people who are watching this about what are the 1 or 2 important things in your mind that can be takeaways that they can take away on this mental health week?
For me, it was believing in myself and not being scared to put myself out there. And I think we spend so much time worrying about what we can't do that we forget to focus on what we can do. And even though it is scary by times, and you will second guess yourself, it's believing in who you are and believing in your abilities, and staying challenged. staying challenged is key. Like, I love to learn new things. And I can't imagine my life just being on a constant all the time where I was doing the same thing and using the same skills all the time. So, you know, you need to trust yourself and you need to be open to new challenges. And from a mental illness perspective, what I've realized is speaking openly about my own struggles with mental illness has made me a stronger person. It's made me connect in a deeper way with people. It's allowed me to have conversations that I never would have had before and to meet people I never would have met before. Mental illness is a mental illness. It's not a mental weakness.
Yeah.
And I was brought up to think of it as a mental weakness, to think of it as something that had to be hidden, that that we didn't talk about and we just kind of put behind the closed door. When I was first given my antidepressant prescription, I was still on TV at that time. And I remember when I finished, I didn't want to take them in the beginning. And then when I finally did take them, I was left with this empty pill bottle with my name on it. And I panicked. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to put it in the garbage because in my head, and this was just like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I thought somebody would see it bouncing down the conveyor belt at the landfill and pick it up and say, "Oh, Starr, oh, Prozac, I'm calling Frank Magazine," or I'm going to call the newsroom and say she shouldn't be on the news. That's where I went. And when I went to the Mental Health Foundation and shared that story publicly, I had so many people come up to me afterwards and say, "Oh, Starr, you put your prescription bottles in the bathroom sink overnight, and in the morning the labels just peel right off. That's what I do." And I had people tell me, that's why we have Sharpies. I never put, they would put their heart medication, their high blood pressure medication bottles in the garbage, but they'd scratch their name off before they'd put their Prozac prescription bottle in the garbage. And then I met people who said they've never thrown any of those bottles out. They have Sobeys bags in their closet full of them. And it just made me realize I felt like I was so alone and I was the only one who was having these thoughts and taking these pills. And then once I shared that experience, it just opened the door for me to hear other stories and for other people to own it too and say, I felt the exact same way. But it's not a weakness. It's an illness like anything else. So
that is so important. And what I've heard when I've just been listening to you now is really that message of strength and being courageous enough to acknowledge things about yourself and to be able to then use that strength and courage to actually change the minds of others. Now that's pretty impressive. Wonderful. And I'd just like to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to spend this with me. And I hope that the people that tune in and see this will take inspiration from what you've been able to say. And if they could get a little bit of the courage that you have, that would be fantastic.
Thank you so much, Dan. And I can't let you go without saying thank you to you for being such an amazing representative of our province and of our country when you travel internationally, and for being such a strong friend to the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. It really means a lot.
Thanks so much, Starr. And you take good care of yourself and of all those who are near and dear to you.
I will do that. You too.